Welcome to the Daring CEO Co-op podcast, where we celebrate entrepreneurs who dare to build a business on their own terms. I'm your host, Denise Klein, and each episode, we're going to dive into stories, talents, and passions of those who are redefining success and making their mark by sharing their gifts with the world. Join us for inspiration, real talk, and actionable insights as we embrace the power of daring to do business your way. All right, here we go. Welcome to the Daring CEO podcast. I am super excited to have with us today Coach Mandy-Marie. She is a mindset coach, but a little bit more than that. And we're going to hop in and find out how she got to be where she is. And she's going to share some of her expertise with us. Mandy-Marie, it's so good to see you today.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. So, one of the things we talk about in the Daring CEO Co-op is the fact that you have to be a little daring to be an entrepreneur, and we have to maybe dare to be a little different now and then. And we all know that being an entrepreneur is so much about mindset, which is one of the reasons I love that we're going to have you here today. But before we even get into all the mindset stuff, I would love for everybody to get to know you a little bit and tell us about your journey to become your own daring CEO.
Okay, well, my mess became my message. That's the great encapsulating quote there that somebody wise once said, and I thought that is exactly what has happened with me. So my first real big mess was actually mental illness. I had depression for 12 years. And I also had a lot of perfectionism in me that I didn't really realize at the time. But now that I look back, like, whoa, yeah, I really did. So that 10 years of depression, really not very many people knew that I was dealing with what I was dealing with because I was very high functioning. And it was super important to me to just carry on with life and really try to create a good life for my children. So it was really an internal battle that really I just kept it to myself.
Yeah.
And one of my prevailing beliefs was that it was just my test in life and there just wasn't anything that I could do about it. And so I just needed to figure out how to hunker down and just make it through it. And I remember one day, many years into that 12 years, when I walked outside and I looked up at the sky and it was a beautiful day. And I looked down at the ground and I could see the flowers that I'd planted. And I just had this very overwhelming sense of sadness and just like hopelessness. And I remember the thought that came to me, and it was, am I really going to have to do this the rest of my life?
Wow.
And I was feeling, hopeless doesn't even begin to describe what I was feeling at that point. But that was really a turning point. And even though it still took some time for some answers to start to come, that was a turning point for me to realize, man, is there really something else that could be a reality in my life? So speed up a little bit. And as I got more curious about, well, what if I could figure out an answer to this depression? What if I didn't have to have it the rest of my life? And that really began to open me to other experiences and other people who started to come into my life. And I started to ask different questions of my doctor. And it led to me figuring out some gut health that was going on. And then I met somebody that really helped with the mind piece, which I had no clue the two were connected or that it even mattered. Like, I really was just clueless about it. So as I started to use some skills that I had been learning, and I was working with my doctor and he was helping me to wean off my antidepressant and just see how things would go, I started to have these breakthroughs. And the depression actually left me. Now, some people get really like angst about that. They're like, that's crazy. What are you talking about? That can't happen. For some people, it can happen. For other people, they need to be on medication the rest of their lives. That's fine, and I don't condemn that or judge that or anything. But for me, it was a real turning point in my life to have that 12-year hardship really become resolved, and to be able to step into a life where I was free of that hopelessness and that sadness was really tremendous. And so that really began this new journey in this new chapter where I would start to get these ideas like, well, there's probably a lot of people out there that might really be interested in my journey, and maybe they can do something with their mental illness. Maybe there's something else available to them. And I just would ignore those thoughts because I'm like, I can't talk to people. Like,
Yeah,
I
who am
can't.
I to do that kind of thing? Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. And to even consider doing what I do now as a mind mastery coach, like, if you would have
That probably
told,
felt so
oh,
far
yeah.
away.
Yeah. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Well, a few years into me like really starting to learn how to be a life coach, and to I was just kind of had my feelers out there. I learned something about my programming, which was from based on an experience that I'd had when I was a young teenager. The program was nobody wants to listen to you. Nobody wants to hear you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have anything important to say.
Mm-hmm.
That program was deeply embedded inside of me. And so when I was fighting these ideas, like you could start a business, you could help people
Mm-hmm.
based on your own mess becoming your message, like you do have something that could help people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but I had that subconscious programming that was like, ooh.
Well, and I think that is a beautiful example of exactly what I think about when I think about the mental side of being a business owner, to even get to the point where I say, could I even? I wrote down a couple of things that I want to revisit before we go too far. Your depression, your 12 years of depression, you suffered in silence.
Yeah.
And I think that happens far more often than we think it does. And I've been down that road. I don't have any problem saying it. I've had depression my entire life and anxiety, and I was actually recently diagnosed with ADHD, which explains so much of all of that. But we suffer in silence. I think in part because we're like, oh, but we're supposed to be okay. So you put on
Mm-hmm.
that face to
Mm-hmm.
go out there. So I love that you're sharing this, because if there's anybody watching that's suffering in silence,
Mm-hmm.
they know that they're not alone in
Yes,
that suffering. The
definitely.
other thing is you started asking questions like, because you said to yourself, am I going to do this for the rest of my life? And when you started asking the question, well, what if I don't have to?
Mm-hmm.
And giving yourself just that little piece of hope that there's a way out.
Mm-hmm.
If you can give yourself that, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's just another powerful message, that if you are suffering in silence, you can give yourself a little hope, and with support, pull yourself out of that, whatever it may look like. Everybody's journey is different. So what a powerful story to tell, that you've been through it. And I was even commenting like how sunshiny you are today. It's hard to believe that you went through 12 years of depression without thinking that there's another way out. So kudos to you for asking the questions and doing the work, even when you had the voices in your head telling you you can't really do this, that you challenged those things. So at what point did you, or was there a point where you're like, I'm just going to do this anyway, even though you had the doubts?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And really, like, one of the most difficult hurdles to overcome was that whole programming, right? That nobody wants to listen to you. So as I started to like step forward just a little bit and actually have conversations with people who would talk about mental illness specifically, and then I would share something that I had just learned or a little piece of my journey out of it,
Hmm.
that was really hard to do. But I just decided I was just going to start doing it just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And so I remember one of my first conversations that actually lasted for many months, and it was with my massage therapist.
Mhm.
And I really kind of went out on a limb because when she said, "Well, what do you do?" and sometimes we talk and sometimes we wouldn't, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But she was very interested in what I did. And I was just I was just starting to like actually have a business right at
Mhm.
that point. And so to be able to even have that conversation with her and just kind of open up, like that was huge for me.
Mhm.
But it really, really helped me in my journey to becoming an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because she then told me about her sister and said, "My sister's got to come talk to you." And that opened up a 2-year experience with this
Wow.
sister that was amazing.
Yeah.
An incredible experience of like, okay, I really do have something to share, and
Mhm.
I have skills to
Mhm.
teach. And here we go.
Yeah. I love that you were brave enough to even to open up to anybody. I remember when I first started my business, and I have to go out and do networking. Okay, that's where I get most all my business is networking, and I mean it made it seem like it, but I am awkward and uncomfortable, and in the presence of other human beings. I'm an introvert, and so I remember the first time I was going to a meeting, I was like, my goal is to go. I
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
to talk to anybody. I just have to go. And then the next
Love
time
it.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to two people, you know. But just giving yourself permission to do
Yes.
little things. Those little things can add up. I mean, and you end up
Yes.
with a client because you were brave enough
Yeah.
to open up. So
Yeah. It's
that
it's
is love.
the aggregation of marginal gains is what you just
Ah,
described. It's the 1% better. Today
yeah.
I'm going to do 1% better than I did yesterday. And today, nope, I'm not even going to do 1% better. Just arriving today, okay? But tomorrow's a new day and I'm going to do 1% better. So that's
Yeah.
something that I teach my clients, like just baby steps,
Yeah.
truly.
Well, and I think, okay, we live in a society where we see a movie or a show and
Mhm.
the hero starts at zero at the beginning and they're a hero in an hour.
Oh,
And
that is so true.
we see that whole journey in such a short period of time, but in real life, our journeys are long and they're not a straight line, and they're certainly not a straight line up. They're
Yep.
kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I think it's powerful to hear that it can happen and you can do it slow. There's not some big expectation that if you're feeling low today and you have this idea you want to start a business, don't feel pressure to do everything all at once. It will come in time with those little.
Yes, and we need to honor that it takes time.
Mhm.
I've in the back of my mind, and I haven't even voiced this out loud, especially in a podcast, but
Mhm.
in the back of my mind, I have this idea of creating a training to
Mhm.
certify coaches the way that I
Mm,
coach. I actually have had
I
three or
love
four
that.
people say, "I want you to train me to coach like you coach."
Mhm.
So that's percolating in the back of my mind. And every so often I'll think about like, okay, well, what would I teach? And that what you just said is one thing that I would teach.
Mhm.
Like there is no let's hurry up and get there.
Mm-mm.
We have to honor that it takes time, and it's going to take a different amount of time for every person, and that's
Yes.
okay.
That's okay.
And
Your
the more that
journey
we
is your
can
journey, is not somebody
That's
else's.
right. Yeah. And the more that we can honor what that looks like for us personally, the more effective we will be in
Mhm.
our entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Oh, so powerful. I just love everything that you do. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about that whole coaching the coach thing after. I've got questions about that. um, so and here's another thing, like just the whole idea of comparison. I think we do that a lot. We see, our neighbor,
Mhm.
or our sister or somebody else, living and thriving in a way that maybe we can't. And that's a detrimental thing. And I think with social media and stuff like that, that plays a huge part in the pressure we put on ourselves. And you were talking about that kind of conditioning that we get from childhood. A lot of those kind of things kind of reinforce those
Oh,
voices
yes.
that we've
Oh,
heard.
yes.
in our heads.
Yes. And that's where the way that I coach is different or maybe different than
Hmm.
other coaches that someone may know.
Hmm.
Because I'm all about understanding what the subconscious program is for the person that I'm talking to. Not
Hmm.
what my programming is,
Right.
not what my neighbors, not what the last clients is,
Hmm.
but you personally. What is your programming that is sabotaging your efforts to create the business that you want,
Hmm.
to live the life that you want?
Hmm.
Because I guarantee there is something in your file drawer in your subconscious that is sabotaging you.
Yep.
So I help people figure out what are those messages, and then, all right, now how do I rewire?
Yeah.
Because we rewire our brains through neuroplasticity.
Well, and I guarantee you the vast majority of people, if they've not spent any time thinking about how they think, they may not
Yes.
even realize they've got stuff from childhood. And
Yeah.
can I tell you, like when I went to therapy, I've been in therapy a couple of times, and just I remember going to my therapist and I was like, I don't want to talk about my childhood stuff. She's like, then
Uh-huh.
why are you here?
Oh yeah.
Because so much, I'm 50 years old, but there are still things that happen to little
Yeah.
girl Denise that
Yeah.
still,
That's right.
affect you in today's, and sometimes we don't want to look at that. But having somebody like you as a guide, I don't know, because I've seen some of your training because we've worked together a little bit. Like I know that your approach is almost scientific, right? Because you really do look at that reprogramming
Yeah.
of the subconscious mind. You want to talk about that
Yeah.
part a little
Yeah.
bit, the brain stuff?
Yeah. Yes. So Bruce Lipton, who is a neuroscientist, he talks about how 95% of our daily results comes from our subconscious programming.
We're just following a
Yeah,
track.
it's
Yeah.
huge, right?
Yeah.
Like most of that, we're not even aware that it's happening, right? Like I'm responding to something my husband said based on some kind of program that's inside of me. I don't even think about it.
Mm-mm.
But the freedom comes when I actually learn how to start thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, on Sunday, I turned 54.
Mm-hmm.
And as the day progressed, I started to notice that I was having some brain chatter. Now, you might
Mm-hmm.
think, okay, Mel, well, yeah, 54, you're getting older, the wrinkles are starting.
Right.
Actually, it wasn't that. That wasn't the brain chatter that was attacking me.
Mm-hmm.
It was about friendships and past friendships, people that had come in and out of my life, which
Mm-hmm.
is normal, right?
Sure.
But my brain was like, no, that's not normal. And you're bad and you've done something wrong. Like it was just, you know, going a million miles a minute. And I noticed it was happening and I didn't really do anything about it. I think I was just kind of intrigued a little bit. I went to bed and I could not sleep. And that chatter, I realized when I woke up in the morning, because I had this thought, I was like, oh my goodness, all that chatter was going on behind the scenes in my subconscious while I was trying to sleep. That's why I was staying awake, right? And those exact thoughts about, well, you're not good enough, and yeah, if you did this better, then your friends would always be your friends, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like I realized, just I faced it. I was like, whoa, that is what's happening right now in my brain. Now, is it true? How do I want to respond to it? So that's where then I turned that 95% of my daily results is in my subconscious programming and said, okay, what is really true? Well, what's really true is that there is an ebb and flow of friendships. It's designed, life, friendships is designed that way. So I started thinking that thought because neuroplasticity says that we can change the wiring in our brains. So I have the wired that says, friends should always stay in your life. And I'm saying, well, you know what? That's not exactly true. And that actually doesn't give me the results that I want in my life, especially in showing up with my friends. So now I'm creating a new pathway that says there is a natural ebb and flow of friendship, and it's beautiful.
I just love that. And I wrote down two things. I love that you were like, when you have all that brain chatter, instead of being judgmental about it, got curious
Mm,
about it. Because I think a lot of times we get in those negative thoughts. It's just easy to go with the negative thoughts, right?
yep.
And just spiral instead of
Yes.
stopping and thinking. And then the other thing you said was, is it true? Can I tell you, I think the first time I realized that half the crap, pardon my language, in my head wasn't even true. But even, you have a thought sometimes and you just take it as truth.
Yep.
But it's just not. And
Yep.
that the fact, I think when we talked about hope earlier, I think this is where it comes in, because if you can look at your thoughts and determine whether they're true,
Yes.
and then try, again, start reprogramming your subconscious mind, then you have that hope that things can change. Like there is an actual way to do this. So this episode's all about
Yep.
hope, as it turns out.
Yes.
How beautiful is that? So when you started working with clients, at what point did you start working with clients? How long has that been?
I'm in my 11th year.
Wow. See, that's a big congratulations. So many businesses don't make it that long. I love that. And do you work mostly one-on-one? Do you do group coaching? How does that work?
Yeah. So up to this point, I have done mostly one-on-one. I
Hmm.
love one-on-one because I love to help somebody figure out their sabotage
Hmm.
and rewire their brains and create a life that they want.
Imagine
I
that.
love that. And it's
Mhm.
very individual. And I love
Yeah.
to do that. And quite frankly, it comes very naturally to me. Like
Yeah.
it is a
That's your
gift from
superpower.
God.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that.
Yeah. I love that. And
So,
it's very individual. I mean, because what you're talking about is intensely personal. So it makes
yes,
sense that one-on-one is such a powerful way to do that.
yes, yes, absolutely. So, about a year ago, well, actually about 2 years ago, I started thinking about how do I reach the masses? Do I want to reach the masses?
Hmm.
Right? Do I want to provide a less expensive way for people to actually just get some skills? Just
Hmm.
get some basic foundational skills to
Yeah.
help them understand their brain, to learn to master their minds so
Hmm.
that they can master their lives.
Yeah.
So I just percolated on that a little bit and I hired another coach who helped me to really establish where I was into a system.
Mm.
I had already been doing it, but I wasn't calling it the way that he helped me to really put it into a system.
Hmm.
So I then created a course, which you helped me with.
Hmm.
And I have just redone that whole course and connected all of the dots
Hmm.
and re-recorded it.
Hmm.
And it is now available for everybody at a very affordable price.
Awesome. We will
So
make
that
sure everybody gets the link.
yes,
Yeah.
so everyone can get that foundation of, oh, wow, here is how I can learn and
Hmm.
begin to master my mind.
Yeah. And I can tell you, because I've seen the course, there is so much, and you do it in such a beautiful bite-size way. So it doesn't feel, because when we're going, I mean, when you're doing this kind of mental, emotional work,
Yes,
it can be a lot.
yes,
And so I love that how your approach makes it very approachable. It's a really good way to do that. So yes, we'll make sure everybody gets a link for that so they can
that's
check that
great.
out. So you what's the question I want to ask? When you're out here and you're looking for people to serve, right? You're
Mhm.
looking for people that you can help. Is there any misconceptions or anything like that, or anything that you would want people to know before, if they're looking for this kind of help?
Yeah, I would say that a common misconception is that, well, there's just a list of things to do, and I just need to think happy thoughts and I'll do better.
Mm,
And
if only.
yeah, yeah, then we probably wouldn't be talking, right?
Hmm.
Like the world would be a different place.
Yeah.
So while I am all about learning how to think thoughts that are truthful, yes, absolutely. I am all about let's figure out how to get there.
Hmm.
Don't go out on Google, find the top 10 declarations for the year, and just start talking about them, listening to them, saying
Hmm.
them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's this level. So
Yeah.
I'm going down here where the iceberg is that you can't see
Hmm.
and helping you to reprogram your life according to that. So
Yeah.
if your business
Hmm.
isn't doing what you want it to do,
Hmm.
I guarantee there's something down here below that's sabotaging your efforts.
Hmm.
And you can do all of the to-do lists that you've heard. Everybody has great lists of things to do for
Absolutely.
entrepreneurs, like make sure you did this and this and this and this and this and this. And you can do all of that and still not be getting where you want to go. And that's because the iceberg that you can't see is sitting here.
Well, and I think too, for so many people, I come at things from a little different perspective because of my business. I'm helping people build systems, right?
Oh, yes.
And so a lot of times it's like we're dealing with symptoms
Yes.
and you're dealing with cause,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And a lot of times we have this huge list of things and expectations and pressures as entrepreneurs. But if we've got stuff going on here, we may not even be able to do half of the things we think we're supposed to. Now
That's right.
we could throw the word should in there, and
Yes.
I'm not crazy about that word,
Yeah.
but we do. And so yeah, if you've got stuff going on,
Hmm.
bubbling under the surface, then that can make all those things that much more
Right.
challenging.
So the really cool thing here is that you figure out your iceberg and you get rid of the iceberg, your capacity to do all of the things up here on the surface to make your business run smoothly and do what you want it to do is
Mhm.
completely expanded.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So it's all about increasing our capacity
Hmm.
to live the life that we want, to create the business that we want.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'll just speak for myself here. I'm not the only one. When you start running a business, I don't know. I flip it back and forth between I've totally got this and
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing, and flipping that back and forth. And so, I would think that doing this work and finding that center
Hmm.
makes it easier to do things like make decisions, whether it's to add a
Yes.
new product, to bring in a new person, to expand your business in some way. It's easier to make those decisions if you're coming from a place that is, I don't want to use, maybe the word whole isn't quite the word that I'm looking for, but you know what I mean? More centered.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Your capacity has increased,
Yeah.
right? If we're trying to make decisions up here and move our business forward, but we've got this iceberg underneath the surface, it, our subconscious is literally focused on that a lot more than it is focused up here on what
Yeah.
we really want to do.
Yeah. The mind is a tricksy, tricksy thing. Um, okay,
Thank heavens we
Izzy,
can change it.
yes, and hope.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
There are ways, and it really does kind of begin with that awareness that
Yep.
there is a possibility to do that. So we talked a little bit about the big difference between you and some of the other coaches because it's not just, I don't know, affirmations. You are
Hmm.
doing that deep work. When you're working with someone, is there a certain length of time that you work with people? Do is a longer better? I don't know.
Yeah.
How does that
Yeah.
usually work for you and your clients?
Yes. So I really like at least 4 months.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I've made a few exceptions, and that is if somebody has done a lot of this kind of work
Hmm.
before, then they might not need 4 months.
Hmm.
But especially for somebody who really hasn't gone into what their subconscious is firing off,
Hmm.
4 months is a minimum. And usually people get to 4 months and they're like, okay, I want another 4 months. And so they buy
Yeah.
another 4 month package
Yeah.
because it's that transformative and they understand. In fact, I had one client who did 4 months and
Hmm.
she got to the end of 4 months and she's like, okay, I feel like I can kind of walk like with a crutch. So I need you to help me get off the crutches in another
Mhm.
4 months. And so we did it for another 4 months.
Yeah.
And now we work together on Voxer, and she just
Yeah.
talks to me every so often and asks me questions. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, an insurance plan, so to speak,
There you go.
kind
There
of a
you
thing.
go. So
So
it's
yeah,
nice. The nice, yeah, so you've got some flexibility there. Yeah. And I think when you were talking about making these kind of changes, again, it's not a fast process. So you do
right.
have to be a little patient. And I would think that, um, I'm advocating a little for Mandy-Marie and coaches everywhere, but I think when you have that help, it's
Mhm.
smoother and easier. Can you get there on your
Yes.
own? Absolutely. But we'll use Mandy-Marie as an example. 12 years of depression before she started that journey. Like, and it doesn't have to take that long
Right.
if you have um, help and support
Yeah.
through that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference to have somebody help you to see what you can't see.
Imagine that.
And
Um,
that's that. I mean, I really,
mhm,
because when I hired my first coach, yeah, I totally didn't know what I couldn't see. And
mhm.
they totally helped me to see what I couldn't see. And it put me on this path to right now that I'm talking to you.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, I am a big advocate for coaching. I've said before, I used to be a teacher, and I feel like coaching and teaching
Yeah.
are sisters, maybe. And
Yes.
so I love that that kind of transformation and support and helping people become the best versions of themselves. And I love that you work with women that want to, find their place in the world and really create the life that they want. And if that happens to be a business, do you work just with business owners? You work with all kinds of women.
All kinds.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
So, I mean, I think there's something powerful in thinking, well, you can create a life that you love.
Yes.
It really can happen.
Yeah.
And it's just easier when you have somebody like you that
Hmm.
can help us see the dark corners that
Yeah.
we maybe not see, and we're not looking at them by ourselves. So I think
Yes. Yeah.
that's wonderful too. So Mandy-Marie, I thank you so much for coming and being part of today. We'll make sure everybody gets your contact information, and so they can get in touch with you. um, I just love what you do so very much, and
Thank you.
please, if you think you could just talk to Mandy-Marie, like she would be good for you. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Daring CEO Co-op podcast. If you'd like to have more support and join our community, we'd love to have you. You can reach us by going to daringceo.com. There you're going to find a link for our free Facebook community. And if you'd like to be a podcast member, there will be a link for that as well. Thank you for spending this time with us. Now, go be daring.